this episode alone, Mr. Greg really showcased a lot more of what this show is capable of when it comes to Paul's relationship with Greg and vice versa. Because believe me, when I first watched this episode for the first time, I mostly enjoyed the music in Empire City itself, so this second binge watch was honestly more of a good idea when it comes to rewatching this episode. After getting the money from the last episode while showing Steven and Paul the burger commercial that had his song in it, they sing the song while minus Paul in order to figure out where they want to go, and they decide to go to Empire City. And they decide to take Paul along, and the majority of the episode is a musical, just like the Steven Universe movie, but at the same time, this is 11 minutes longer, and when it came to the songs itself, they really went all out when it comes to the songs, but I'll get to those real soon. In my opinion, with the setting taking place in Empire City that I really enjoyed during my first binge watch, if they just made the entire episode mainly of the characters being inside of Empire City and not a musical, then it would probably be mostly a forgettable episode, which really is saying a lot considering that the songs themselves are not only memorable, but the song that Steven sings while Paul and Greg dance together really shows that it's the most memorable moment in this entire episode. Because Paul doesn't want to dance with Greg whatsoever after knowing that Rose went after him rather than her, and at this point knowing full well that Paul's crush towards Rose is really an indicator that she doesn't trust anything when it comes to Steven in the first season, especially in 3 Gems and the Baby that I've talked about, and the fact that she told Greg that with him being a human, he can't be able to fuse with Rose. She did a lot of regrettable things towards the people that she warned. Granted, she wasn't wrong of telling Greg that she can't fuse with Rose, but at the same time, her jealousy got the better of her, knowing full well that her moving forward was a lot more difficult, considering that her problems with Garnet when it came to cry for help and when they tried to reconcile in friendship, she really had a difficult time moving forward. And just seeing her development in this episode is an indicator that it really shows that people actually put focus on nearly all the other characters. Because in the first binge watch, I honestly prefer Garnet and Amethyst over Paul, considering that my impressions back then were mainly new at the time, and when it came to these impressions during the second binge watch, there's always a purpose of how she's portrayed like this. I need to be really real with you that my first binge watch was mainly enjoying the characters so much that I understand them, but not in the way when it came to the second binge watch. No matter what, shows, movies, whatever, they change over time, and whenever they age good or bad, your perspective of them will always change. Empire City in this episode was honestly the thing that I remember the most, and it's mainly the songs that contribute to having Mr. Greg to be the better episodes of Season 3, but believe me, every time I think about Empire City, this is literally the only way we're ever going to experience Empire City, unless if it's a musical. Because to tell you the truth, Broadway songs, when it comes to Empire City that is similar to New York or took inspiration of New York, there's no avoiding it. Like, I'm aware that other shows that have the characters take place in the big city, well, aside from Big City Queens, do a lot more than doing musicals, but believe me, Broadway, when it came to big cities, is honestly a tradition, considering that even though I never went to New York, I did went to Chicago 11 years ago, and we watched a Broadway show there. Believe me, whenever I think about cities in these types of episodes, it has to have Broadway in it. So with that being said, let's go talk about the songs. The vocal song in the beginning is for what it is, I just think that the other songs are much more important, considering that that song was mainly integral when it comes to Marty giving Greg a check of $10 million. So, Don't Cost Nothing really showcased that Greg doesn't know how to deal with the money, and it kind of shows that he kept sending dollar bills to so many waiters and really afford a huge room that is way more expensive with the water slides and whatnot. And to be real with you, the story of Greg using all of his money really indicates that he really needed to spend all that money, otherwise there would have been inflation. But less said about that, the better. The next song, Empire City, is a really entertaining song, especially towards the end, that after the music came to an end, Steven invited Paul along on the trip, because it's literally the only way for her and Greg to get along. And one of the reasons onto why I include this song into my intro when it came to the third of this marathon, aside being instrumental, is because I honestly like the music of it, even though that the instrumental version was a different instrumental version, but I'm trying to avoid copyright. I just feel like that this song alone was a lot more entertaining and a lot more upbeat to make this intro a lot more different than the first ones and the last ones. And I'm talking about the intros of Season 4, 5, and Future in the Future. So when it came to Mr. Greg, with it being the title of the episode, it's mainly that Broadway style that really makes this a lot more memorable than it should be, especially when Paul sings towards the end. Paul's lyrics in the song really made it a lot more entertaining since that she got into being in Empire City, especially when she danced with Steven. Then again, when it came to Broadway songs, when it came to people wearing hats in the song while doing sounds from their shoes while they're dancing, it's honestly what people really wanted from a Broadway song to be when it comes to the song genre of people in the big city. But let's talk about her song, It's Over, Isn't It? When I first heard this song for the first time, I enjoyed it, and rewatching it or listening to it again, I really understand Paul's character a lot more after watching the many episodes before, because believe me, it really feels like that she can't be able to move forward, and yet at the same time, she didn't want it to be here, knowing full well that it's not going to make her feel better, but at the same time, Steven just wanted her and Greg to reconcile, similar to Paul and Garnet reconciling, even though that Steven wasn't responsible with the stuff that Paul did in those episodes from Season 2. When it came to Greg's point of view, he knew that Paul wasn't really on good terms, knowing full well that it's impossible for her to move forward, especially since that Greg can't be able to be with Rose that much anymore due to her turning into Steven. And even though that this was before the events of Season 5, keep in mind, if they actually knew all along that Rose was Pink Diamond, then none of these episodes would even work. I'm just saying for a fact that even if we all know the twists when it came to rewatching these episodes, keep in mind, if it happened at the very first episode, then this show wouldn't even exist. That is just a fact. The following song, Both of You, sung by Steven, really made this episode way more better than it needed to be when it comes to Greg and Paul dancing with each other. Because as far as I'm concerned, Steven knew that most of this was going to happen when it comes to Greg hearing everything that what Paul said or sung, so he took matters into his own hands by playing the piano and saying Both of You. Every time I look at Paul and Greg dancing while hearing Steven saying while playing the piano really gave me the feeling that they really wanted this whole reconciling to work a lot more better when it came to the other reconciling. Granted, when it comes to Ruby and Sapphire in Season 5, this is definitely second place, but trust me when I say this. Watching this for the first time really made me enjoy the episode a lot more better, and how that it was to the point that Steven Universe was a lot more fun to sit through during my first binge watch. Because believe me, the first binge watch of watching one of these episodes have given me memories that I'm never going to have later on in my life. And even though that the second binge watch is stating the fact of what I just addressed, it still gave me more to think about when it comes to these characters in the show itself. As for the reprise of Don't Cost Nothing, I enjoy it, and it really caps off this episode really good with the three heading back to Beach City by leaving Empire City. And I gotta be really real with you that even though that I critiqued the issue of the Steven Universe movie having too many songs, after watching this episode, it kind of feels like that they really wanted the Steven Universe movie to do a lot more similar to this episode. Because as far as I'm concerned, the people who make this show obviously love musicals and Broadway. This episode is not only one of my favorites from this season, but one of my favorites of the entire show. For me personally, if anyone's going to sit through this episode for the first time, they will never frown upon it, and they will find enjoyment and satisfaction from it from beginning to end. I'm giving this episode a 10 out of 10, and the double uploads officially ends. Tomorrow is only going to be one upload for one day up until the final day of summer. It's been a wild ride to do this double upload for a month, but at the same time I want to talk about all the episodes of the 125 episodes that I picked out from this show. I'll see you guys tomorrow.